Ryland Ward worked alone on a quiet frontier moon, far from any busy cities or crowded starports. The land around him was silent and empty, made of gray rocks and long shadows. His small repair camp sat beside the broken survey drone he had been fixing all morning. He liked simple work and simple places. Out here, no one bothered him, and he could focus on tools and machines instead of people. He wiped sweat from his face and leaned closer to the drone's power core. A small spark jumped from a wire, and he frowned. He muttered to himself as he reached for another tool. But just as he bent over the core again, he froze. Something soft drifted through the air. It was not wind. It was not an animal. It was a sound. A voice. It was tiny, shaky, and full of fear. "Help, please." Ryland slowly turned his head. His heart beat faster. He listened again, wondering if the sound came from his comms device. But the comms were off. The voice came from somewhere beyond the rocks. He stood up and looked toward a small cliff. The voice returned, this time clearer. "Please, help." He felt a cold breath run down his neck. No human child lived on this moon. No colonies were nearby. So, who was calling? Ryland grabbed his portable lamp, the only source of light strong enough to cut through the shadows. He walked slowly toward the cliff, his boots crunching on the dry ground. The voice stopped, and the silence grew heavy. He felt as if the land itself watched him. At the base of the cliff was a narrow crack that led into a cave. Ryland lifted the lamp and leaned closer. The inside glowed dimly. He heard soft breathing, shaky and unsure. Then a pair of small shapes appeared. Two creatures stepped out of the darkness, tiny and trembling. They looked like animals at first. Thin bodies, wings folded tight, small horns, and scales that shimmered faintly in the lamplight. But their eyes were wide and bright, filled with emotions Ryland could understand. They were afraid. They were desperate. He took a slow step back. They took a slow step forward. Then one of them tried to speak. It struggled with the words, like it had learned them only recently. "Mommy is dying," it whispered. "Please help." Ryland felt the world stop around him. These were not animals. These were dragon hatchlings, young members of a species known across the galaxy. Dragons were powerful, intelligent, and very dangerous when grown. Meeting even one was rare. Seeing a hatchling was almost impossible. Seeing two was something most people would never believe. Ryland looked at them, unsure what to do. His hands felt heavy. He had heard stories that dragons attacked humans without warning. But these two were small. They shook with fear, not anger. How can I help?" he asked softly. The larger hatchling pointed a small, shaking claw deeper into the cave. "Mommy hurt inside. You human. You fix things. Please fix Mommy." Ryland's heart tightened. They must have seen him working with tools earlier. They must have thought he could repair anything, even a living creature. He did not know if he could help at all, but he could not walk away from two crying children. He nodded slowly. "Show me." The hatchlings turned and hurried deeper into the cave. Ryland followed, careful not to slip on the uneven ground. His lamp lit the stone walls, which were marked by old mining scratches left by humans many years ago. The tunnel smelled like dust, metal, and something else, something sharp and painful. After several twists and turns, the tunnel opened into a wide chamber. The air was warmer here. The ground shook faintly with slow, deep breaths. And there she was. A huge dragon lay on her side, her wings spread weakly across the cave floor. Her scales were dark blue with streaks of silver, but many were cracked and broken. A long wound across her chest leaked a thin trail of glowing blood. Her breaths were slow and shallow. Her eyes were half open, dim and tired. Ryland felt fear rise in his throat. A full-grown dragon could burn him to ash with one breath. Even sick or injured, she was massive, but she was barely moving. She seemed too weak even to lift her head. The hatchlings ran to her side and pressed against her neck. One looked back at Ryland with pleading eyes. "Please help Mommy," it whispered again. Ryland slowly approached. He looked at the wound. It did not look like something another creature made. The cut was too clean, too sharp. It looked like something from old human machinery. He felt guilt twist inside him. Humans had once mined this moon. Maybe a machine left behind caused the injury. Maybe it was his fault, his people's fault. He placed his tools on the ground and knelt beside the dragon. His hands shook, but he forced them to be steady. He cleaned the wound, used a field patch to stop the bleeding, and checked her breathing vents along her neck. They were damaged, clogged by metal dust from the tunnel collapse. He worked slowly but with full focus. The hatchlings watched every movement. Their tiny claws gripped the ground in fear and hope. The dragon stirred once, and Rylan froze. Her eyes opened wider, glowing faintly. She saw him, this human touching her body. For a moment he thought she would attack. Her muscles tensed, but then she saw her hatchlings press close to him, trusting him. Her breath eased. She relaxed again. Rylan continued working until the bleeding slowed and her breathing grew stronger. Sweat ran down his face. His arms ached. Hours seemed to pass before he finally stepped back. The hatchlings leaned against their mother and looked at him with shining eyes. They understood. Their mother was still weak, still hurt, but she was no longer dying. Rylan let out a long breath he had been holding. He had saved machines before. But this time, he had saved a life that was not human at all. And he knew, deep inside, that this moment would change everything. Rylan stayed in the cave longer than he expected. The mother dragon was still unconscious, but her breathing was stronger now. The hatchlings stayed close to her, watching every rise and fall of her chest. They trusted Rylan completely, and that trust frightened him more than the dragon herself. He was only a mechanic. He fixed wires, panels, and machines. He did not save giant alien creatures. He did not work miracles. But here he was. He checked her wound again. The bleeding had slowed, but the edges were dirty from old mining dust. If he did nothing more, the wound could get infected. She could get worse again. He needed to clean it better and stabilize the broken scales around it. He needed more tools, more supplies, things he had left at his repair camp. "I need to go get my medical kit," he whispered. The hatchling's eyes widened in panic. "No, don't leave," the smaller one said, shaking. Mommy needs you." "I'm not leaving forever," Rylan said gently. "I will come back. I promise." They looked at each other, unsure if they could trust his words. They had probably never trusted a human before. Their whole world had fallen apart, and Rylan was the only one who tried to help. If he left and did not return, they would be alone again. The larger hatchling took a deep breath and nodded. "Come back fast." Mommy hurt more inside. Rylan nodded and hurried out of the cave. He ran across the rocky ground, the cold air stinging his face. His camp came into view. He grabbed the kit, extra lights, water, and a pack of emergency tools. He returned to the cave faster than before. The hatchlings rushed to him when he entered, relief clear on their small faces. He was surprised by how much their trust affected him. He worked again on the dragon, cleaning the wound more deeply and using a stabilizer patch to help her scales hold together. The process was slow. His hand shook more than once, but he forced himself to continue. The dragon's breathing stayed steady. That gave him hope. But as he finished securing the stabilizer, something changed. The ground trembled. A deep rumble echoed through the cave, shaking dust from the ceiling. The hatchlings gasped. Rylan looked up. The old mining tunnels were unstable. He had noticed cracks in the walls earlier, but he did not expect them to shift so soon. If the cave collapsed now, none of them would escape. The mother dragon was too weak to move. The hatchlings were too small, and he was too deep inside to run out in time. A loud crack cut through the chamber. A giant rock broke free from the ceiling and crashed down behind him. The force knocked Rylan to the ground. He rolled away as smaller stones rained around him. The hatchlings screamed and clung to their mother. Rylan pushed himself back up. His leg hurt, but he ignored it. More rocks were falling. The cave shook again. The entrance tunnel was collapsing behind him, blocking the way out. He ran to the mother dragon. He could not carry her. He could not move her. He could barely move himself. "This is bad," he whispered. The hatchlings pressed themselves against her body, crying, "Help Mommy! Please! Please!" Rylan looked around desperately. He could not stop a cave collapse. He had no machine strong enough. No tools that could lift a mountain. But he could try to protect them. He could do the only thing he understood: patch things, shield things, keep things from breaking. He spread the emergency shield pad over the mother dragon's wound. Then he grabbed the hatchlings and pulled them close, covering them as best he could with his own body. His back faced the falling rocks. His arms held them tight. He whispered, "Hold on." Then a roar filled the cave, a sound of strength and fire. The mother dragon's eyes opened fully. They glowed bright blue. She saw the rocks falling, the hatchlings crying, and Rylan shielding them with his weak human body. With a deep breath, she lifted her massive wing. It shook from weakness, but she forced it open. Her wings swept over Rylan and the hatchlings like a giant shield. The rocks crashed down on her wing, but she held steady, growling through the pain. Rylan looked up in shock. She was protecting him. He had helped her, and now she refused to let him die. More rocks fell. The cave roared. Dust filled the air. Rylan coughed, trying to breathe. The mother dragon gave one more powerful growl and pushed her wing upward. The falling rocks rolled off to the side. The rumbling slowly faded. The cave grew quiet again. Dust floated to the air like gray snow. Rylan slowly lifted his head. The hatchlings opened their eyes and looked around. They were alive. He looked at the dragon. Her wing was scratched and bleeding, but she was still breathing. She stared at him with tired but calm eyes. "You saved us," he said softly. She blinked slowly, as if answering. Rylan sat back, exhausted. His heart pounded. His whole body shook. He could hardly believe what had just happened. He had risked his life to protect her hatchlings. She had risked hers to protect him. A strange bond formed in that moment, one neither human nor dragon could explain. The hatchlings crawled onto Rylan's lap and pressed their warm scales against him. He hesitated, then wrapped his arms around them. He was only a mechanic, a simple human. But somehow, in this dark cave, facing death itself, he had done something beyond logic. He had earned the trust of dragons, and that trust would change everything. The next morning on the quiet moon felt different, as if the air itself carried new meaning. Rylan sat near the mouth of the cave, watching the soft sunrise spread across the rocks. He was tired, covered in dust. His arms still hurt from the falling stones. But he had stayed awake most of the night, checking on the mother dragon and watching over the hatchlings as they slept curled against him. The mother dragon breathed weakly but steadily. Her wound was still serious, but it was no longer deadly. When she opened her eyes, even just a little, Rylan felt relief. Each time she looked at him, she seemed calmer. She understood what he had done. She knew he had tried to save her life. As the sun climbed higher, a low hum filled the sky. Rylan lifted his head. That sound was familiar. It was a sound of engines, fast ones. A ship. He stepped out of the cave and looked up. A sleek silver craft glided over the ridge, slowing as it approached the rocky valley. It was not human. He recognized the curved wings and glowing blue lines. It was dragon-made technology. His breath caught. Had someone been watching? Had they seen the collapse? The hatchlings ran to his side and pressed close to his leg. They looked scared but also hopeful. Maybe they knew what the ship meant. The craft landed gently, blowing dust across the ground. The metal door slid open with a soft hiss, and 3 tall figures stepped out. They were not full dragons, but Draconids, humanoid members of the dragon species who often acted as envoys. Their scales were thinner, their wings smaller, but their eyes shone with the same ancient fire. They stared at Rylan with sharp, serious expressions. One stepped forward. "Human, you are the one who touched the matriarch." Rylan froze. Matriarch? That word hit him like a stone. The mother dragon wasn't just any dragon. She was a leader, an important one. That meant everything he had done would echo far beyond this small moon. He nodded slowly. "I helped. I tried." The Draconids exchanged shocked looks. One of them muttered something in their own language. The hatchlings ran past Rylan and hugged the legs of the envoys, speaking quickly. "He saved Mommy. He fixed her. He protected us." Their small voices rang loudly in the silent valley. The Draconids listened, their expressions changing. Surprise turned into disbelief. Disbelief turned into wonder. Finally, the leader stepped closer to Rylan. No human has ever touched a dragon and lived. No human has ever healed one. His voice trembled. Why did you help her? Rylan looked back at the cave. The mother dragon lay inside, still weak. He thought about her pain, about the fear in the hatchlings' voices, about how humans had caused the old tunnels to collapse. She needed help, he said simply, and they needed their mother. The Draconid stared at him for a long moment. Then he bowed his head slightly, a gesture of respect. Your actions will be remembered. Rylan didn't know what that meant, but it didn't sound small. The envoys entered the cave to check on the matriarch. When they saw her breathing steadily, even in her injured state, they froze. One placed a hand over his chest. She lives, he whispered. The hatchlings climbed onto their mother and nuzzled her neck. The matriarch did not lift her head, but her eyes opened slightly. She saw the envoys, then Rylan standing behind them. Her gaze softened. Somehow, even weak, she looked royal. The envoys stepped outside again. Their communicator devices glowed as they sent messages across space, messages that traveled far beyond the moon, far beyond the system. Rylan felt a strange mix of worry and confusion. He had only tried to save a life. He never meant to start something huge. But the galaxy didn't care what he meant. Within hours, more ships appeared at the edge of the moon. Some belonged to dragons. Some belonged to humans who had received the distress signal from the old mining station. They landed cautiously, watching each other with suspicion. When the first human team saw Rylan standing beside dragon envoys, their faces went pale. They whispered urgently among themselves, unsure if he was a hostage or a hero. Rylan tried to explain what happened. The hatchlings backed him up, clinging to his legs and telling everyone how he saved their mother. Even the matriarch, from inside the cave, let out a soft, rumbling breath when humans approached, as if telling them she meant no harm. Word spread quickly. The story traveled to human colonies, stations, and news channels. It reached dragon worlds, too. Deep, old worlds where dragons rarely spoke to humans at all. A human saved a dragon matriarch. A human touched her and lived. A human protected the hatchlings. Some humans called Rylan a liar. Some called him crazy. Others believed he had done the impossible. Dragon leaders argued among themselves. Some felt grateful. Some felt shocked. Some felt angry. Angry that a human had touched their sacred leader. But the hatchlings kept telling their story everywhere they went. He saved Mommy. He was not scared. He was kind. People listened. People wondered. People argued. Rylan became something he never wanted to be, famous. When he tried to return to his repair work, human officers stopped him. Dragon envoys watched him. Reporters tried to get interviews. Everyone wanted something. But he only cared about one thing. The matriarch. She had begun healing slowly. She was still weak, but stronger each day. Each time Rylan visited her, she opened her eyes and looked at him with a quiet, powerful trust. She never growled at him. She never acted afraid. She accepted him. One evening, as he checked her breathing vents again, the matriarch moved her wing and gently nudged him with a tip. It was not an attack. It was a gesture of thanks. Rylan felt his heart tighten. He bowed his head. The hatchlings climbed onto his shoulders, happy and excited. They seemed to believe he was part of their family now. And far across the stars, powerful leaders, human and dragon, began to prepare their questions. If one human could heal a dragon, if one moment could change everything, then what else could humans and dragons do together? A quiet act of kindness had created a wave, and that wave was beginning to reshape the galaxy. The quiet moon did not stay quiet for long. In only a few days, more ships arrived than Rylan had ever seen in his life. Human ships circled above the rocks, and dragon ships hovered like silent giants. Both sides watched each other with suspicion, and tension filled the air like a storm waiting to explode. Rylan stayed near the cave, caring for the matriarch and watching over the hatchlings. He tried to stay out of politics, but politics kept coming to him. Every leader wanted answers. Every soldier wanted to know what really happened. Every reporter wanted to hear the story from his own mouth. But the real danger came when people started to twist the story. Some human groups claimed the dragons were lying to trap humans into an alliance. Others said the matriarch faked her injury for attention. A few even spread rumors that Rylan himself was being controlled by dragon magic. None of it was true, but it spread fast. On the dragon side, things were no better. Some dragon elders refused to believe that a human helped their sacred matriarch. They said humans must have hurt her in the first place. They said Rylan only helped to hide the truth. They believed humans wanted to weaken the dragon race. Because of these voices, fear grew. Fear turned into anger, and anger began to turn into threats. Rylan felt the change every time he left the cave. Human soldiers stared at him with worry. Dragon guards watched him with fire in their eyes. He could almost hear their thoughts. Is he a hero? Is he a threat? Is he a tool of the other side? The hatchlings stayed close to him. They could sense the tension, too. They often pressed against his legs, shaking. "Why humans angry?" the smaller one asked. "Why dragons angry?" the larger one added. Rylan did not know how to answer. "Because they are scared," he finally said. "And scared people do strange things." One afternoon, the quiet moon shook with noise again. 2 fleets arrived, one human, one dragon. They landed opposite each other across the valley, the distance between them tense and dangerous. Soldiers lined up. Engines hummed. Weapons glowed faintly. Rylan felt cold fear settle in his stomach. A human commander stepped forward. A tall dragon envoy stepped forward to face him. Their eyes met with no warmth at all. One wrong word could start a war. Rylan walked out from the cave with the hatchlings beside him. The soldiers stopped talking. Everyone turned to look at him. The air felt heavy. The human commander frowned. "Rylan Ward," he said sternly, "you are needed for questioning. There are claims that dragons harmed their matriarch and are blaming us." The dragon envoy growled softly. "And we believe humans caused or wound with their machines. You will explain your actions before the Dragon Council." The hatchlings stood in front of Rylan and spread their tiny wings as if shielding him. "He saved Mommy," they both shouted. The soldiers looked confused. Some humans lowered their weapons. Some dragons blinked in surprise. But not everyone was convinced. "We cannot take the word of children," a human officer said sharply. "And we cannot trust a human who hides in a cave," an old dragon elder snapped. Rylan took a deep breath. He could not shout. He could not argue. He could only speak the truth. "You all want answers," he said. "But the matriarch is the only one who knows everything. She saw what hurt her. She knows what really happened." The dragon envoy nodded slowly. "Yes, her voice is the strongest proof. But she is still weak," Rylan said. "She cannot travel far." The human commander thought for a moment. "Then she will be moved to a neutral station. Both sides will attend. Both sides will hear her speak." Rylan did not like the idea of moving her. It was risky, but if it could stop a war, he had to try. The hatchlings cried softly and held on to their mother as the envoys prepared a medical transport. The matriarch was lifted gently into a large cradle with glowing supports. Her eyes opened slightly, and she looked straight at Rylan. There was no anger in her gaze, only trust. That trust gave him enough courage to keep going. The neutral station was a large floating platform above the moon. Humans and dragons filled the hall, sitting on opposite sides like 2 seas about to crash into each other. Rylan stood in the middle of the room with the hatchlings, holding his arms tightly. Everyone went silent as the matriarch was brought in. Her breathing was slow but steady. Her scales dim but beautiful. Even weakened, she radiated strength. When she raised her head slightly, hundreds of people held their breath. Rylan stepped forward. "Tell them what happened," he whispered. The matriarch looked at both sides, then at her hatchlings, then at Rylan. A deep rumble rose from her chest. When she spoke, her voice was low but clear. "I was hurt by old human machines, by accident, not by attack." A wave of shock moved through the room. She continued, "I was dying. My children cried. This human came. He fixed me. He protected my children. He protected me. The hatchlings nodded firmly. He saved Mom. The old dragon elder's face fell. The human commander lowered his head. Many others looked ashamed or surprised. The loudest voices that had pushed for war, could no longer argue. The truth was now out. Rylan felt relief wash through him, but he was not finished. He stepped forward again. "We almost fought a war because we did not trust each other," he said softly. "But trust is how I saved her. Trust is how she protected me. If we trust each other now, maybe we can avoid war." Silence spread across the hall. Then slowly, one by one, heads started to nod. The fear did not vanish. The anger did not disappear. But the first step had been taken. The matriarch closed her eyes again, tired but peaceful. The hatchlings hugged her gently. The threat of war had been real, too real. But a single truth, spoken bravely, had pushed it back. For the first time since the accident, hope began to rise. The humans stood on the cliff, watching the sunrise spread across the alien sky. The world below was calm now, glowing with soft colors that made the land look peaceful again. For the first time since he had arrived, he breathed without fear. Everything had changed so fast, yet he felt like he had been part of this place forever. The baby dragons sat beside him. They were bigger now, stronger, and their scales shone like polished gemstones. They no longer cried or trembled. They looked proud, happy, and full of hope. Their mother rested behind them in a warm cave, healed and safe. Her breathing was steady, her wings were strong again, and her eyes were full of life. She tested her wings every morning, stretching them slowly as new energy filled her body. The humans and dragons both had guards watching from a distance, but there was no anger anymore. There was only caution and a strange new respect. Days ago, they stood ready for war. Now, they stood ready for peace. The human looked down at the village where he had first found the baby dragons crying. Back then, he had not understood anything. He had only acted because he couldn't ignore their fear. He remembered the tiny voice saying, "Mommy is dying, please help." That moment had changed two civilizations. Now the dragons' leaders came often to speak with the human commanders. Their meetings were still stiff, but they always ended with steps toward understanding. The great dragon queen, who had once been on her deathbed, attended some of these meetings too. She spoke slowly, her deep voice shaking the air. She thanked the humans for saving her life, and she promised that her people would never forget the mercy shown to her children. The human mechanic, who once thought he was ordinary, became a symbol of something bigger than himself. People whispered his name on both sides. Some called him foolish, some called him brave, but everyone agreed that what he did had changed history. He often felt shy about it. He didn't think he had done anything special. He only saw scared children who needed help. The dragons treated him with quiet honor. Everywhere he walked, they bowed their heads slightly. The baby dragons followed him often, like younger siblings who didn't want to be far from the one who saved their mother. When he worked on machines or tools, they watched with wide eyes, amazed by everything he did. One day, while he was fixing a small transport drone, the smallest baby dragon nudged him gently and said, "We want to show you something." Their voices were no longer weak. They were soft but strong now. Curious, he followed them deep into the forest. The path led to a wide open space near a river that glimmered like silver. Strange stone patterns marked the ground. The dragons explained it was an ancient place, a sacred spot used only for rare moments of great importance. The mechanic didn't understand why they brought him there, but then their mother arrived. She stepped forward with slow, graceful movements. Her massive wings curved behind her like a cloak. Her golden eyes shone warmly as she lowered her head toward him. He froze, unsure what to do. She touched her forehead gently to his chest, just above his heart. In their culture, it was the highest gesture of gratitude. The baby dragons explained it softly. It meant he was now a guardian of their family, a title given only to someone who had truly saved them. No human had ever been given it before. The human felt overwhelmed. He didn't think he deserved such honor, but he knew the gesture meant everything to them. He placed one hand on the dragon mother's warm scales and bowed his head. He whispered a promise that he would always protect them if they ever needed him. The moment was quiet, simple, and full of meaning. When they all returned, they found the human and dragon leaders waiting together. Instead of tense expressions, they looked patient and hopeful. The Dragon Queen said, "Let today be remembered as the day we choose peace." The human commander nodded. "Let our future begin with trust, not fear." Both sides stepped forward, placing tokens of their nations into a shared flame, a sign of unity. From that day, the planet changed. Humans and dragons learned from each other. They built communication towers together. They shared medicine knowledge and stories. The children from both species played near the river, where the mechanic had once found the crying baby dragons. And the mechanic? He stayed for a long time, helping both sides build a new life. He didn't see himself as a hero. He only saw the smiles of the baby dragons and the calm breathing of their mother. In time, peace became normal. Mistrust faded. And the story of the human who helped dying dragons became a legend told across the stars. It was a new beginning, one built on kindness, courage, and a choice to do what was right, even when it made no sense. The stars above shone brighter than ever, as if celebrating the start of a future filled with hope.